So this is just a continuation of where we had stopped from our last session, and I begin with the concept in sociology and philosophy of education. And when we are checking on the concept of philosophy and sociology of education, what are these concepts we are checking on? One, we are going to check on what is sociology. We are going to check on what is philosophy independently. Then bring and conjoin them together as sociology and philosophy of education. Then we will look on the sociological and philosophical foundations of education in regard to the education system of our country today. Okay, people would say that there are so many different concepts in regard to sociology and in regard to philosophy. But I would say this is just one. Only that sociology encompasses all that is societal related, how communities, how societies interrelate with each other in different practices to bring them together and call themselves a society. Then there is philosophy. Philosophy is how a person understands their own truths and the steps undertaken to achieve those truths. And that's when we get people saying, as my school of thought. My school of thought, because philosophy is the love for wisdom. So what you love to achieve is your philosophy. Okay? So let's check on some of these concepts that we're going to check here. What are they really concerned about? Number one is, what is sociology? So one thing that you're supposed to know as a student in the DECTA is, what is sociology? Remember, this is our introduction lesson, and I'm not going to teach deep about whatever I'm displaying here today, but from our lessons now going forward, because this is a one-year program of upgrading from the PTE P1 certificates to now something else in the upgrade sector, because the TSC has given a recommendation and given a timeline of 5 years that by the end of the 5 years, a teacher should have upgraded their studies and become something more beautiful. I know sociology and philosophical foundations of education, this is the first time you're going to interact with it, but trust me, you have been interacting with it. It is only that it has never been a unit in your areas of studies. Sorry for that. So we will study what is sociology, what is philosophy, then we will study something else. And this something else is, we will bring in ideas of essentialism. We will bring essentialism. We will bring perennialism. We will also bring reconstructivism. And progressivism. I believe by the end of this module, you'll be able to understand progressivism, essentialism, perennialism, and whatever as we go on. Now, there are foundations of education. Where did education really start from? Or how did we come up with this type of education? I would like to return you back to the industrial eras where we had the colonial regime in our countries. That is when the introduction of the formal education system really took on set in our country. During the late 18s and the early 19s, this is when the onset of formal education system started in our country. And since then, there has been activities taking place in our education system. There have been people giving recommendations and write-ups and giving documentations to people to become educationists, to become qualified students, and also to become teachers in this education system. We have moved through different curriculums. We have moved through different education systems until where we are today. There are systems that have been agreed to be common by different bodies, by different regimes, and also by our Ministry of Education and the Teacher Service Commission to give us the steadfast framework of how our education system should look like, what are the educational practices, what we are supposed to give, the content for delivery, and also our pedagogy as teachers. Now, there's something else we need to study. When we are studying the concept, we also need to distinguish between the dimensions of education. And now in dimensions of education, we will look at dimensions of education. When we check on dimensions of education, there are things that we will study. And number one, we will study education in its formal state. So we will look at the formal education system, the informal, the informal education system, the non-formal education system, and then we will also check on the formal, informal, non-formal. We will check on the cognitive, ideology, normative, and so forth and so forth. So these are the kind of education dimensions you're going to check at. And now I believe you already know what is formal, informal, formal, cognitive, ideology, and normative education systems are. Since time, there has been education in our country. Since time immemorial, since when our great-great-great-grandfathers were, even way back before the colonial regime came into our country, we really had education in our country. There was apprenticeship where boys and girls would learn from the elderly through observation, and they would receive education and pass it to the next generation, from one generation to another. Now, the basic characteristics of this education system was that it was passed from one generation to another generation. But something different has happened. We have broken that intergenerational regime study. Now, what we do currently is we have a formal education system which has got stipulated goals, which has got a structure, which has got a curriculum, which has got professional documentation, which has got certification, which has got a syllabus, and which has got age brackets to which class and which form you're supposed to belong as a student, and as a teacher, what you're supposed to deliver to the audience you're given by the Teacher Service Commission. And now we will check into this deeply, but this is not our major aim of study. Another thing, we will check on the importance of sociology and philosophy of education to a teacher. You know, teachers need to be taught a lot, really a lot. If we don't want to get half-baked teachers into the society, we really need to teach teachers a lot. And this a lot brings us into sociology and philosophy. They really need to know, where did it begin? What are the practices that we are supposed to do in education system so that we receive the quality that we want? What quality of a teacher do we want to have in our country? You know, in most cases, we have been having teachers who are half-baked, teachers who don't know what real teaching practice is. Some who knows, some who doesn't know. But this course is introduced to you so that you can understand clearly what you're supposed to do. In an imagination that a teacher with PTE certificate doesn't know how to make a lesson plan is really too bad. Because those teachers actually knows what to do it, or how to do it. What they might not know is the exact format to do it across board, in Form 1, in Class 8, in Class 6, in Class 7, Grade 1, Grade 2, where to do it, how, and when, what is the current education system. And now, that gets us to the contemporary issues. What are the issues that we're having in education right now? Like, for example, I may tell you that we are transitioning from the old education system into a new curriculum-based, competency-based curriculum system. And now with this, teachers really need to know more about how to deal with the student as a whole, regardless of where the student is coming from, regardless of what standard the student is, regardless of the mental state of the student, the physical state of the student, and the cognitive state of the student. Regardless of that, the teacher needs to deal with the student as a whole person, as a human being, and to give them the dignity they're supposed to uphold. Now, sociology of education and philosophy of education has been built and created to give us that eye to see what a student needs in its original state. That ka student peke yake, only a student. What do they need? What is their basic need in the education system? That is where sociology and philosophy of education comes in. What are you supposed to do to help a child as a whole, as a single child, but not as a class? You know, long time we used to check on the class as a whole class, Class 1A, Class 1B, Form 1D, Form 1 Machakos, Form 1 whatever, Form 1 GNDC, Form 1 whatever. But this time round, we are checking on the student alone. And that's why, what philosophy are we going to use to isolate that child from the rest and deal with them as a child, as a single unit, as a whole, and make sure we get the result from them as an individual. Ndio maana tunaanza kutoa hii mambo ya when number 1 na when number 2. because we want every student to stand out alone and shine in their own way. Because all students are not the same, and that's why we study the individualism in this course. So another concept that we'll study is individualism. So what is individualism? How to deal with it, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. So there's a question I would like to ask. Distinguish the dimensions of education. After distinguishing the dimensions of education, I would like you to evaluate philosophical and sociological concept in a learning situation as a teacher. What is your sociological and philosophical concept around you, that learning situation? You are a teacher. What are the philosophical and sociological concepts around you? What do you feel is more sociological? And another one, what do you feel is more philosophical? Let's check it out. So our second topic will fall, our second subtopic, still in the overview of what sociology and philosophy of education is, will be education as a process and then education as a system. We all understand a process is just the set of things which are done in a process, in a progressing way, interchanging from one another. That becomes a process. Then there is a system. A system has got a set of some rules, some protocols, something to follow. A set of something. That is a system. And a system is self-regenerated. A system should be self-regenerated. It does not depend on you to regenerate anything. It is just systematic. After this, it is this. 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 How is education a philosophy to that nature? How does education qualify to become a system? How does it qualify to become a process? Now, what we will look there, we will look at education as a process and then education as a system. And we will define it and differentiate. Then we will investigate on the concept of education as a process and as a system in Kenya. Why is education a process and why is education a system? I'll give you some example. We come from lowest to the highest education level. Then there are activities to do there. If you want to become a teacher, then you can do teaching practice, then whatever. They are processes. Then there is a system. And that system is different from the process. The processes, you undergo them as you move through the system. Thank you very much. And then we will acknowledge the importance of education as a process and as a system. How does it help us? It has helped us to shape our discipline, to shape ourselves, to maneuver and understand our curriculum, to appreciate others, to appreciate culture, to appreciate many things in our education system. Another part that we will study still in this is the reforms in teacher education. What reforms have taken place since independence? What have we changed? Because we inherited this education system from our colonizers, and those are the British people. Now, what are the reforms that we have done to our education system since independence mpaka leo? Tulianza tukifanya teacher practice. Tulianza tukienda NYS kwanza ndio tukuje. What has happened? What has changed? What have we transitioned from to wherever we are today? And what are the benefits of that transition? What have we gained as a country? What have we knowledgeably gained? What have we impacted into the lives of our teachers and teachers into the lives of our students? What have we done? Have we created new policies, new education systems? What have we changed the curriculum? Have we changed the syllabus? What are the reforms that have been made in our education system since independence?